how to use Ichidan and Godan verbs. So in modern Japanese, there are two different types of verb classifications. There are Ichidan verbs, often seen classified as Ru-Verbs in many textbooks like the Genki series, and the other type of verbs are known as Godan verbs, also known as U-Verbs. And these are the two different types of verb classification that are used in Japanese. And so in this video, you'll learn exactly how to tell whether a verb is an Ichidan verb or a Godan verb, as well as how to then conjugate them in all the various different ways you can conjugate verbs in Japanese, as the rules are actually different whether a verb is an Ichidan or a Godan verb. So first up, how do you tell whether a verb is an Ichidan verb or a Godan verb? So there are two common methods that you can use to figure out any verb, whether it's an Ichidan verb or a Godan verb. So very simply, these two methods revolve around either the dictionary form or the nai form, the negative form. First, let's have a look at the dictionary method. Now this method is a little bit less accurate, however it's easier because all you need to know is the dictionary form of a verb, like miru to see, taberu to eat, kiku to hear, nomu to drink. And so using this dictionary method, all Ichidan verbs end in a ru. This is actually where the name Ru-Verbs come from. However, be careful, as not all verbs that end in ru are an Ichidan verb. This can get a bit confusing. Some of them are actually Godan verbs, and the way to conjugate these verbs is completely different, so be careful. So if you want to use the dictionary method, a good way of figuring out whether a verb that ends in ru is an Ichidan verb, a good way to tell is if the sound before ru is either an e or an I sound, then they are probably Ichidan verbs. There are some exceptions. So like for example with the e sound, taberu, so that's taberu, it has an e sound, so it's an Ichidan verb. Or an I sound, like miru, to see or to look, miru, miru, it has an I sound. And so if there's an e or an I sound before the ru, then it's probably an Ichidan verb. Everything else, every other verb is a Godan verb, everything else. And so that means that if the vowel sound before the ru is an a, u, or o, then it's always 100% a Godan verb. And so this means even if the verb ends in a ru, if it has an a, u, or o sound before the ru, it's a Godan verb. And this is where the classification for Ru-Verbs and U-Verbs make things really confusing with these exceptions. That's why it's much better to learn them as Ichidan and Godan verbs, not just for this difference, but also how to conjugate them. The names will make a lot more sense when we have a look at the conjugations in this video. Like for example, wakaru, to understand. So it's a sound before the ru, so it's automatically a Godan verb. However, there are some exceptions, as I said, and it does get a little bit tricky. Like for example, kaeru, to return home. Well, that has an e sound, so you would think it's an Ichidan verb, but actually it's a Godan verb. That's very confusing. And this is also a problem for verbs like kiru, to cut, and kiru, to wear. One of these is an Ichidan verb and the other one is a Godan verb. Which is which? If you were following the dictionary method, you would have no way of figuring it out. And so this is where using method number 2 can help you out. Method number 2 revolves around the nai form of a verb, the negative form. And this method has 100% accuracy. All you need to know is that if a verb in the nai form has an I or an e sound before nai, then it is always 100% of the time an Ichidan verb. So 100% of the time, if a verb has an I or an e sound before nai, like minai, to not look, tabenai, to not eat, kinai, to not wear, inai, to not exist, nenai, to not sleep, kotaenai, to not answer, all of these have an I or an e sound before nai, therefore it's an Ichidan verb, 100% of the time. Very, very reliable. And if a verb in the negative form has an a sound before nai, then it is 100% a Godan verb. So like for example, kiku, to listen, kikanai, to not listen, nomanai, to not drink, iwanai, to not say, shinanai, to not die, wakaranai, to not understand, kaeranai, to not go home. And so here this is really simple. You instantly know if the sound before nai is an a, ki, ka, no ma, iwa, shina, then you instantly know it's a Godan verb. Super simple. All you need to do is learn the negative form of a verb alongside any verb that you learn, and just using this incredibly easy system, you instantly know what type of verb it is. It's such a reliable system to use. So many learners of Japanese get their heads just blown up whenever they learn about Ru-Verbs and U-Verbs in classrooms. With their really confusing system with so many exceptions and all of this nonsense, all you need to do is learn method number 2 by using the nai form of a verb, and all of your headaches will go away. So with the nai form method, you now know how to classify every single type of verb except for 3 exceptions. Nice and easy, just 3. The first irregular verb, aru, to exist. If you want to put that into the nai form, it is just nai. As nai is literally to not exist, aru to exist, it's just the opposite form. So this first exception has different conjugation rules to Ichidan and Godan, so just be careful. The next irregular verb, kuru, to come, the negative form of this is konai, to not come. So kuru is the second irregular verb you need to be careful of. And then the final irregular verb is suru, to do. And the nai form of suru is shinai, to not do. So if you just remember, there are 3 exceptions: aru, kuru, and suru. These 3 verbs are known as irregular verbs, and they don't follow the conjugation rules for Ichidan and Godan. But don't worry, we'll go through how to conjugate these verbs in this video as well. Okay, so now you know how to classify whether a verb is an Ichidan, or a Godan, or an irregular verb. But now you want to actually use this verb and conjugate it into many different forms, like the past tense form, the polite form, the negative form, and so on. Well, first, if we have a look at Ichidan verbs, these are the most straightforward. And so Ichidan actually means like one stage or one grade. And what that means is that there's just one stage when you conjugate the verbs. All you need to do is just drop the ru and replace it with the conjugation. That's it. It's incredibly simple. Any Ichidan verb, just drop the ru and then add the conjugation stem at the end, and you've now successfully conjugated the verb. I wish every verb was an Ichidan verb. It's so simple. So let's take a look at some examples and see how this is done. And so we have miru, to see.
おじちゃんテレビ見るの好き？
好きだよ。
Taberu, to eat.
人と一緒にお昼を食べるのは久しぶりなので緊張します。
Kiru, to wear.
これを着るんだ。テロリストの服装。
Neru, to sleep.
私寝るわよ。
And okiru, to wake up.
早いね、起きるの。
And so for all of these Ichidan verbs, the conjugation rules are exactly the same. Just drop the ru and add the conjugation. So if you want to create the negative form, all you need to do is just replace the ru with nai. So miru, to see or to look, just turns into minai, to not see or to not look.
あまり見ないでください。
あ、すみません。
Taberu turns into tabenai.
早く食べないと冷めるぞ。
わかったよ。ありがとう。
Kiru, to wear, turns into kinai.
さて、まずは服を着ないか。
もちろん。それから話そう、二人でな。
Neru, to sleep, turns into nenai.
ゼロ様、まだ寝ないのですか？
まだ眠くない。
Okiru, to wake up, turns into okinai.
お前、なんで急に寝るんだよ。ずっと起きないでさ。死ぬかと思っただろうが。
If you want to use the verb in the polite form, all you need to do is drop the ru and add mas. Mimas.
暖かくなったので、虫の姿はよく見ますね。
Tabemas.
私の国ではコーヒーと一緒に食べますね。
Okimas.
次々と厄介が起きますね。
今さら気づいたのか。
Nemas.
大丈夫ですよ。僕らなら外で寝ますから。
For the potential form of a verb, all you need to do is drop the ru and add rareru or reru. You can kind of think of these two uses as the full rareru is a bit more of the proper way of saying it, and reru is a little bit more of a contracted way. It's almost slang. Both are very commonly used, with just rareru being the more proper. So miru, to look or to see, turns into mirareru or mireru.
この泉を覗くと過去が見れるってことか。
Taberu, to eat, turns into taberareru or tabereru.
待ってろ。何か食べられるものを見つけてくるから。
Kiru to wear turns into kirareru or kireru.
花嫁衣装を着られる日が来た。こんなに嬉しいことはありません。
Okiru to wake up can be okirareru or okireru.
今度はどうかな起きられるか今度
And neru to sleep can be nerareru or nereru.
船旅の後だと宿屋で寝られるのはありがたいよね。
For the volitional form, all you need to do is drop the ru and add yo. Miru, miyo.
花火綺麗だったね。また一緒に見ようね。
Taberu, tabeyo.
なあ、ロクサス。次の任務終わったら、またここでアイス食べようぜ。
Kiru, kiyo.
会いたかったぜ。まずは服を着ようか。
Neru, neyo.
さあ、体に触るから早く寝よう。
Okiru, okiyo.
起きようか。そろそろ学校に戻らないと。
So Ichidan verbs are so simple. But next we have Godan verbs, and these are actually much more common than Ichidan verbs. And the rules for these is a little bit more complicated. However, there is a connection here with the naming of Godan, just like there was with Ichidan. And so the conjugation for these verbs are a little bit more complicated, as the conjugation is based on the sound that the verb ends in. And so these are verbs like nomu, to drink,
飲むと元気が出るぞ。
yomu, to read,
これを読むんですかの。
hanasu, to talk,
聞いたら話す？話す気ないんでしょ。
kiku, to hear or to ask,
奴らに全てを聞く。
and even iku, to go.
いつ行くよ。
And so as we saw, these verbs are known as Godan verbs. And this is actually related to the 5 vowel sounds in Japanese. A, I, U, E, O. And this is actually directly connected to how you conjugate these verbs. A is for the negative form, we actually saw that in the rules. I is for the polite form. U is for the dictionary form. E is for the potential form. And O is for the volitional form. And so first we have the negative form. If you wanted to turn a Godan verb into the negative form, first you need to change that final sound into an sound and then add nai. So if we take a look at these verbs we have here, nomu, to drink, kiku, to hear or to listen, and asobu, to hang out or to play. We can see the final sounds here, mu, ku, and bu. We need to change that into an sound and then add nai. So first, nomu, to drink, we need to change it into no ma and then add nai, no ma nai, to not drink.
助かるわ、モニカ。あなたも一緒に飲まない？
Or kiku, to hear or to ask or to listen, we need to change that into an sound, so ki-ka nai, kikanai.
そんなことは分かってる。
なら聞かないでよ。
And as you can probably guess, asobu, we need to change that bu into a ba. So, asobanai, to not hang out or to not play.
ねえ、これからどこかで遊ばない？カフェとか駅前モールとか。
Next on the 5 vowel sounds, we have I, and this is for the polite form. And so just like we have with the negative form, you need to change the final sound into an I sound and then add the polite mas. So maybe try pausing the video and trying this yourself with nomu, to drink, kiku, to hear and to listen, and asobu, to hang out or to play. And so if you wanted to turn these verbs into the polite form, nomu turns into nomimas, nomimas.
水飲みますか？
Kiku turns into kikimasu.
もう一度聞きます。小島陽子さんと一体何があったんですか？
Asobu turns into asobimasu.
何人で遊びますか？
The next sound we have is u, and this is just the dictionary form. This is the form we've been using the whole time with nomu, kiku, and asobu. All of these are u sound endings. Mu, ku, bu. This is the dictionary form. E is the potential form. So as you can guess, you need to change the final sound into an e sound and then add ru. So nomu, to drink, would be nomeru, to be able to drink.
終戦日の今日、またこうして酒が飲める。
Kiku, to hear, would be kikeru, to be able to hear.
面白い話が聞けるかもしれない。
Asobu, to hang out or to play, is asoberu.
これでみんな安心して遊べる。ありがとう。
And then the final sound we have is o, and this is for the volitional form. And so, as I'm sure most of you are able to already guess, you need to change the final sound in a Godan verb into a o sound, and then this time add a u. This turns it into the volitional form. So, nomu would be nomo.
よし、ここは我が輩も一緒に飲もう。
Kiku would be kiko.
ラビニスさんの話を聞こ
う。Asobu would be asobo.
お兄ちゃんたちまた来てくれるの？また明日遊ぼうね。
And the three exceptions we saw previously have their own sets of conjugation rules. So first, if we look at aru, to exist. And so as we saw, to make the negative form for aru, you just swap aru for nai.
悪いけど、興味がないな。
For the polite form, you change aru into arimasu.
あなたにお話があります。いいですか?
The dictionary form is aru.
無理するな。もう一つ確認したいことがある。
Aru actually doesn't have a potential form, although you could kind of see the verb arieru to be that.
我が国の者が万人どもに協力していると。ありえぬ。
お言葉ですがあり得ることです。
And the volitional form of aru, although not very commonly used, only in certain phrases, is aro.
いかなる理由があろうと、私に逆らうことは許されることではありません。
Kuru in the negative form we already saw was konai.
って誰も来ないな。
The polite form is kimasu.
すぐに警察や消防が来ます。我々は彼らに見られるわけにはいきません。
The dictionary form is kuru.
やっぱり森の近くに来ると空気がしっとりしてて美味しいな。
Kuru's potential form is korareru.
この制服を着てこの学校に来られるのあと一月ぐらいしかないし。
And the volitional form of kuru is koyo.
てかさ、またハワイ来ようよ。今度は二人でさ。
And the final irregular verb suru, the negative form as we saw was shinai.
なんか用か？
デートしようよ。
しない。
The polite form is shimasu.
私、シンを倒します。必ず倒します。
The dictionary form is suru, as we saw.
どうなってる？
事情は後で説明するね。
The potential form of suru is actually dekiru, to be able to do.
地元よりよその人間の方がまだ信用できる。あの国でできるなら他でもできるはずだ。
And the volitional form is shio.
V 行けよ。挨拶しようぜ。
And so hopefully now you're a lot more confident with how to tell whether a verb is an Ichidan or a Godan verb, as well as how to conjugate those verbs with Ichidan just following one simple rule, drop the ru and add the conjugation. And then Godan verbs, it all depends on the sound it ends in and then go by the 5 vowel sounds in Japanese. So like for example, the problem that I mentioned previously in this video, two very similar verbs, kiru, to wear, and kiru, to cut. One of these is an Ichidan verb and the other one is a Godan verb. And if you use some of the methods we saw in this video, you'll be able to tell without fail which one is which. If you tried to use method number 1, you wouldn't be able to come up with an answer, unless you learnt it as an exception. However, if you use method number 2 with the nai form of a verb, the negative form, you will easily be able to see the difference. As you can see, it's pretty clear one of them is very different from the other. So now's a great time to test. Let's see if you remember everything we've seen in this video. Which one do you think is an Ichidan verb? And which one do you think is a Godan verb based on the negative form of the verb? So we have kinai, to not wear, and we have kiranai, to not cut. Which one is an Ichidan verb and which one is a Godan verb. Feel free to pause the video right now and try and test it out yourself. So the correct answer is the Ichidan verb is the verb that you simply add nai to the end of the stem. Ki nai. That's an Ichidan verb. And kira nai, it has an sound, so it's a Godan verb. And so now to help reinforce all the information that we've covered in this video, as well as give you a little bit of a test to see how well you can remember the information and apply it yourself, I'll finish this video off with a bit of a review test. I'll give you about 5 seconds to look at the information on the screen and answer the correct question, and then the correct answer will display on the screen as well as the audio replay to help both kind of connect with the language as well as get a little bit of listening practice. Hopefully that helps you out and also increases your confidence a little bit with how to use all of these verbs in the different classifications and how to tell which one's an Ichidan and a Godan. And of course, feel free to pause the video so you can take it at your own pace if you'd like. Whatever works best for you.
人と一緒にお昼を食べるのは久しぶりなので。おじちゃんテレビ見るの好き？
これを切るんだ。
私、寝るわよ。
早いね、起きるの。
飲むと元気が出るぞ。
奴らに全てを聞く。
いつ行くよ。
話す気ないんでしょ。
これを読むんですかの。
事情は後で説明するね。
もう一つ確認したいことがある。
やっぱり森の近くに来ると空気がしっとりしてて美味しいな。
あまり見ないでください。
暖かくなったので虫の姿はよく見ますね。
この泉を覗くと過去が見れるってことか。
花火綺麗だったね。また一緒に見ようね。
助かるわ、モニカ。あなたも一緒に飲まない？
水飲みますか？
終戦日の今日、またこうして酒が飲める。
よし、ここは我が輩も一緒に飲もう。
So hopefully that video was a nice rundown of the 2 different verb classifications there are in Japanese. I highly recommend not learning the Ru and U-Verb systems that you learn in textbooks, and instead learn them as Ichidan and Godan verbs. And just make sure that whenever you learn a verb, you also have a look at the nai form of that verb, the negative form. If you do that, all of your headaches will disappear. You don't need to remember any crazy rules, you don't have to remember any crazy exceptions, you don't have to freak out about which one's which. Without question, by looking at the negative form of a verb, you will always be able to tell, except of course just 3 exceptions, which is aru to exist, kuru to come, and suru to do. That's it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. If you want to see even more about verb conjugation, as there are actually a lot of verb conjugations, like for example, the past tense form, the polite negative and all that kind of stuff that wasn't covered in this video. However, I do actually have the complete verb conjugation video, so feel free to check that out as I go through every single verb conjugation in that huge, I think it's like 1.5 hour video, with a ton of examples from video games to help you connect to the language as well as enjoy learning. So feel free to check that out if you want to see even more about verb conjugation. Thanks so much guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and most importantly, I hope you're enjoying learning Japanese. If you liked the video, feel free to leave a comment, like, subscribe, and if you really enjoy these videos and want to help support the channel, as well as get help with your Japanese and connect with the Game Gengo Discord community, then feel free to join us through the Game Gengo website or through Patreon. You can get direct access with me as well as the broader community, as well as get help with your Japanese on almost a 24/7 basis, as both me and my wife help everyone with their questions on the Discord community. So if you ever have a question, feel free to ask and you can always get help. And we even have streams where we hang out and play games together, and sometimes people even do it in Japanese so you can get some speaking practice. Anyway, thanks so much guys for watching. Hope you're enjoying learning Japanese, and as always, I'll see you all again in the next video. See ya.